Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala man wala. Before we demonstrate how the Prophet ﷺ used to make wudu, according to the Maliki madhab, this is according to the Maliki madhab, right? So there may be some aspects of this wudu that are different, especially as I explain. I want to talk about wudu specifically, what wudu was. Wudu is an act of worship. It's an act of worship. It doesn't require prayer. And that's proof that it's an act of worship that is independent of prayer. You can pray, you can't pray except with wudu. So it's a condition for prayer. But because you've made wudu doesn't necessarily mean you have to make prayer. See what I'm saying? You can make wudu and just for the sake of making wudu. And that's how the Prophet ﷺ treated wudu. He was always in wudu. And the only time he wasn't in wudu was when he nullified his wudu. Otherwise, he was in wudu, right? So that's the relationship he had with wudu was constant. Right? Wudu, if we look at the word wudu, it comes from three letters. What are those three? Waw, Dad, and not Ain. Waw, Dad, and Hamza, right? Wudu, wudu, right? So wudu comes from these three letters. These three letters also form another word. Wada'a. Right? Wada'a. What is wada'a? Anyone know? Nancy, do you know wada'a? Anyone know wada'a? Light. Light. This is just in the language. Just in the language. Wudu and light come from the same three letters. Right? And how did the Prophet ﷺ say, how did he said, Ishtaqtu ila ahbabi. I yearn for my beloveds, all of my beloveds. And the who's he speaking to? The companions. So what do you think they're thinking? Wait a minute.
No, we weren't.
We're right here. We're here. Why do you miss us so much? He said, Bal antum ashabi. He said, rather you are my companions. As for those who are the objects of my love, those are the people who believe in me without ever having met me. You and me, inshallah. The beloveds of the Prophet ﷺ. And so they asked him a question. They said, how will you be able to identify them? How will you know them? Right? I mean, after we're gone, there will be generations and generations of people after. How will you be able to distinguish those whom you love as being your own? And he said, do you consider a man who has 1,000 horses, right? 1,000 horses, black horses. Don't you think he would be able to decipher or distinguish those horses that have they name something? I don't know what they name, but they're marked with whiteness on their. There's like a white spot. What is that called? It's called something. On the forehead, and also in their feet, right? Their feet. They have whiteness on their feet and whiteness on their forehead. He said, don't you think he would be able to distinguish those from all of the rest of his black horses? And they said, yes, of course. I mean, they stand out. He said, so will my beloved stand out to me on the Day of Judgment from the traces of light of their wudu. From the traces of light of their wudu. So this has a metaphysical reality as well. That in Jannah, inshallah, on the Day of Judgment, not even in Jannah, on the Day of Judgment, before Jannah is there, right? Before we're in Jannah, on the Day of Judgment, those who adorn their souls with wudu will be easily distinguishable from anyone who did not have this beautiful gift of wudu. And in the language itself, wudu means light, right? So here we have, and there's so many examples of this where the language and the religious teaching they complement in this way, right? And that's a proof for me that this language is divine. It comes from the same. It's not a pidgin language, right? We know it's not a pidgin language, but there's a debate as to whether it's divine or not. I totally believe it's divine, but my opinion is taqlid even. So it's based on scholarly opinion. It's not my opinion. So the wudu is an act of worship. We mentioned Sheikh Muhammad Majid. He's my sheikh. I've studied this with him. And in the process of studying it with him, he has related to me certain stories that I would like to impart to you. He said that when he was a young boy and he would observe his grandfather making wudu, this is how he did it. He just demonstrated this to me. And this is how he did it. Throughout the entire wudu. No? Throughout the entire wudu. No? That's how he experienced wudu. I witnessed Murabat and Hajj make wudu, and I timed it.
Can you tell us who Murabat
I'm sorry, Murabat and Hajj, he was Sheikh Hamza's main teacher in Mauritania. I didn't study with him. He's very advanced in age, but he was his main teacher. I once observed him making wudu, and I timed it. Guess how long it took him to make wudu? 6 minutes. It took him 6 minutes. And the entire time, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, and he's going through the La ilaha illallah. But that La ilaha illallah, he never stops saying that. In wudu or out of wudu. But he takes his time. He took his time making wudu. His wudu was longer than his prayer.
So his wudu was not in the bathroom, obviously.
No.
That's a big difference.
Yeah,
because if you're making wudu in the bathroom, a lot of your spiritual things like that you can't even do.
No, actually, at least in the Maliki madhab, you can. Because the entire earth is a masjid and a place of purity, you could even pray in the bathroom in the Maliki madhab, right? If it's pure. And what renders it pure is that when the impurities have gone through the toilet, then the bathroom has sort of renewed its purity, right? So the bathroom is just like any other room in the house. There's no barriers, right? But as long as there's that impurity there, you've got to get rid of that impurity, right? And then you render it pure again. The bathroom can be a very clean place. You know, we've seen, we've seen examples of clean bathrooms, right? And there's no reason not to pray in that, except if you, of course, it's not ideal to pray there, but there's nothing preventing that. And I can only speak for the Maliki madhab. You have to take it back to the scholars of your madhab. Right? And you can make dua in the bathroom. You can, these things. I was saying that, it took him 6 minutes. His wudu was almost as long, or about as long as the prayer itself, right? Allah preserve him. You notice that I have a bowl of water to my right. And you might be wondering, okay, is that going to be enough? It's actually a surplus. It's more than enough. The Prophet's wudu was 1 mud, right? And 1 mud was 2 handfuls of water. That's the Prophet's wudu. And it's mustahab, right? Or it's from the sunan of wudu. It's among the sunan of wudu, right? That qillatul ma' bila had, right? Scarcity of water, right? Without limit, without defining what that scarce quantity is, right? As the least amount of water possible is the sunnah of wudu. So just like we wipe our hands 3 times, we rinse 3 times. And we would never think of making wudu without rinsing our hands, our mouths, right? We would never just leave that, right? Although it's a sunnah, it's not a fard. It's a sunnah. Well, some of us might not have known that. But you can actually make wudu without rinsing your mouth even once. Because it's not a fard. Right? It's not an obligation. So just like we would never imagine leaving rinsing of the mouth for wudu, also the least amount of water possible is a sunnah of the wudu. As well as the miswak. So I really should have a toothbrush out here, right? So just imagine every time we made wudu, before we make wudu, we actually brush our teeth. Whom are we addressing? I mean, this is all from exalting the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And wudu is to exalt the prayer, right? And it's to exalt the reading of the Quran. And it's to exalt sleep. You're saying the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ was to make wudu before he slept. So it's to exalt sleep as a sign of Allah. Al-nawmu akhul maut. Sleep is the younger brother of death. right? So to exalt all of these symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the wudu does that, right? And the wudu in and of itself is one of his symbols. Now, so to prepare yourself for the wudu and to have wudu before the time for prayer comes in. Even. So this is the amount of water, and this is going to be a surplus, as we will see. Now, for the wudu of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The very first obligation, right, of the wudu is to have the intention, right? The intent that this is not just some kind of, I'm not just wetting my limbs, right? I'm not just wetting my limbs, but I'm actually engaging into an act of worship that will render other acts of worship permissible, right? Because these other acts of worship are not permissible to me unless I can't touch the mushaf. And that's an act of worship. Touching the mushaf is an act of worship. But it's only rendered permissible through the wudu. So it's an act of worship that renders other acts of worship permissible to us. Yeah? So my intention is to engage this act of worship, and just imagine, just contrast this to our experience of wudu in the bathroom with the faucet turned on full blast, waiting for that water to get warm. So we get a good gallon of water already gone in that process, and then once it's warm, we turn on the cold water once it's hot, we turn on the cold water to warm it, right? So there's water that's coming out of both sides of the faucet now, and that water is full stream, full blast, most of it in the drain, and very little of it remains on the limbs. So that very little that remains on the limbs is the amount of water that the Maliki madhab prescribes for the wudu. You see what I'm saying? And all of the rest of that water. And so just imagine coming to the prayer with a wudu that is makruh. You see what I'm saying? That's what we're doing when we use all of that water. We're coming to the prayer with a wudu that has makruh elements in it. And no wonder why we're so lost in our prayers. We're so distracted in our prayers. Imam al-Khomeini said that a good wudu will mean a good prayer. That a beautiful wudu means a beautiful prayer. That's the only quote I know from him, unfortunately.
You're the only one that's ever quoted Imam Khomeini.
That's right. That's right. Yeah,
That's pretty great.
it's the only quote that I know from him, right? But it's something that we need to internalize. And where he's getting that from is from the Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That a beautiful wudu will lead to a beautiful prayer. And where is he getting that from? I read about 10 hadith about the wudu from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in different narrations of the hadith, in which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whoever does wudu will have such and such reward. Whoever does wudu will have such and such reward." All the rewards are different. So the narrations are different, which means that the occasions were different. And in every single hadith, he said, "Man tawadda'a fa ahsana wudu'ahu falahu kada kada." Whoever makes wudu and beautifies his wudu, he will have this and that, and this reward and that reward, and this reward and that reward. So the qualification that the Prophet ﷺ always gave was ihsan. That's the qualification for wudu. Whoever does, he didn't say whoever does wudu will have this reward, but whoever does wudu and beautifies his wudu will have such and such. So the emphasis then is on the beautification. How do we beautify our wudu? I have a bowl to my left here. This is where we're going to begin. And in the Maliki madhab, if you have an open vessel, then you place it on your right. If you have a closed vessel, like something you have to pour something out of, then you put it on your left, right? So you put on your, if you have like a bottle or something. We had teapots. When we were there, they would bring the water in the morning on donkeys. They had 2 huge canisters of water on either side of the donkey. They would bring it from the well in the early morning, and that would be our water for the entire day. We would make wudu. We would take from that water 1 teapot, and that 1 teapot it was about this big. 1 teapot. Everyone had 1 teapot, and that was their water for wudu. That was also their water for washing their hands to eat, washing their hands from eating, after eating. That was also the teapot that we used to purify ourselves from after using the latrine, right? Everything. Yes, I will. Sorry. Every time I use one of those words,
Bathroom. Bathroom.
I'm good enough. So, so that water would suffice us the entire day, right? So if it's open, it's on the right, and the reason for that is because it's easier to grab from the right. If it's closed, it's on the left, and the reason for that is because then you're pouring with the left hand into the right. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So we begin. Imagine that I've just brushed my teeth, and then I say Bismillah. Right? Bismillah. I've got these bracelets on. It's okay. I don't have to take them off because I can still get the water in. And one of the fara'id, one of the obligations in the Maliki madhab, and this is just for the Maliki madhab, one of the obligations is dalk. And dalk means to rub, right? So rubbing, you might want to say, keep yourself surrounded by Malikis. They'll never rub you the wrong way.
Does the water have to be running?
Huh?
Does the water have to be running?
No, it's not running.
You have to like pour it over so it's running on your hand.
Yeah. So you're gonna say you do pull it over and then you rub at the same time, or you rub afterwards. So rubbing them. The beautiful thing about this rubbing and about it being an obligation, meaning that if you're just you can't just get in the shower, get all this water on you and say, oh, I have wudu, right? Or in even Hanafi, if you, in Hanafi, you can. No, in the Maliki madhab. In the Hanafi madhab, you can. Yes, sir, yeah. So, this is all from the Maliki madhab. Imam Malik was asked, if you take a dive into the river and you have janaba, you're in a state of janaba, are you purified? He said, not until you rub your entire body. Right? Because the meaning of ghusl is to wash, not to wet. Right? But it's to wash. And we use that word in the Arabic language like that. So if I have a shirt that I want to wash, do I just dip it into the water and say, I washed this shirt? No. You actually have to wash it. You have to rub it. Right? So when you rub it, rubbing is part of washing. So when Allah says wash, rubbing is intrinsic to that. Rubbing is a part of that. And what that does spiritually, when you're actually rubbing your limbs, you're rubbing the water into your limbs, then the sins that are not falling passively, but you are actually the agent that is removing yourself of the impurity of your sins at that point, because now you're rubbing, right? You're rubbing them out, right? So that is that's
also Hakim Archuleta would say it's also somatic, because you're feeling your body and you're getting in tune with it. Where water is, you're kind of like remembering your body. That's okay. And he's Maliki too. Hakim Archuleta is Maliki as well. So these are spiritual insights that by practicing the ahkam of your madhab, you might have other spiritual insights, right? But this is one of the benefits, the spiritual benefits from this, and which means that if you don't rub every limb of the wudu is invalid, the prayer is invalid. In the Maliki madhab, right? So so you'll see that, okay? So Bismillah, without ado, I refuse to conform to the idiomatic phrase of how you would all say that, right? Without ado. I just refuse. I just refuse. The way you all say.
It's so condescending. So yeah. Okay. So we say Bismillah, right? Bismillah. That's sunnah. Right? So you take a little bit like that, and that's sunnah. 3 times. You see how much water I took? Right? And my hands are totally wet. Right? 3 times. That's sunnah. Right? I don't have to do that. I could go right to the face. So the verse says, the qumtum ila salah, which is the niyyah, the intention. فَغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ, wash your faces. وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ, your hands to the arms. That is the fard. The hands to the elbows, up to including the elbows. That's the fard. And then your heads, wipe your heads and wash your feet to the ankles. Those are the fara'id, right? So the first wash. Yeah, face, arms, head, feet. That's the fara'id. Those are the fara'id with the intention in the beginning. So saying Bismillah is sunnah. The initial wash is actually sunnah. So I can just wash, right, initially just to you know, because these are the hands that are going to purify the rest of the body, right? And then I'm going too fast, sorry. Right. Now the face is from where the hairline is to the bottom of the chin, right? And if you have a beard, it's to the bottom of the beard, right? If you have a beard that's here, it's to the entire face, right? And yeah, for you, it's to the bottom of your beard.
You have to get in the
Okay, so if you have a thick beard like Shahzad, you've got to go in like this, right? You've got to get the water has to touch the face. Sorry. If you have a thin beard like me, you've got to intersect. If you have a thick beard like Shahzad, it's just on the outside, right? When you get to that. And also from the width is from this thing here, this whatever this is called, I don't know. It's watted in Arabic. Watted, cartilage. This cartilage. It's from this, so it doesn't include the cartilage, but it goes from the cartilage to the cartilage. That's the width. Meaning that if you're just washing here, you don't have wudu, and your prayer is invalid. Okay? So if you're just washing here, so that means we have to make sure that we're meticulous about this, right? And the meticulousness is all part of exalting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? To be meticulous about this. And that meticulousness, that attention to detail is going to affect our lives in other ways. If we're this detailed and this particular, this meticulous, this vigilant about these little aspects of our wudu, how will that translate into other aspects in our relationships and when people are waiting on us, when people are trusting us, when people are relying upon us, right? Yes.
Are the Malikis more stringent than the other schools of thought, or
In terms of what?
How the whole?
I can't speak for that. So then, so it's the entire face, right? And you get into the crevices here, right? The eyelids, the whole thing, right? This part underneath the nose, also this where the two nostrils meet, everything is included in this, right? But through rubbing again.
Sheikh, if I can just mention, Ibn Omar, who was the most particular about things, was so careful about putting the water in his eye that later on, I think his eyesight was affected by that because he would put water in the wudu, and try to make sure that it was getting into all parts of his eye. He was just so particular about that.
So you don't want to put the water inside your eye, right? But you want to make sure that that it gets into the duct and everything. So. So you want to make sure you get between the fingers, right? All of this is rubbed. You see how it's rubbed, right? Between the fingers and the fingernails are included, right? Everything must be rubbed.
And you're only taking from your right hand, so you're trying to get water here. You take water like this.
Yeah, you take the water like that and take it down. And then here with the or you can take with the left hand. Yeah, that's it. But you have to include the elbows. The elbows must be included. and you go right to left on the fingernails. Right to left here, right? So it's right to left on the individual fingernail, and right to left on the hand. Right, right to left on the hand. Okay? Look at my water.
It's still full.
It's still full, right? Okay, and then this is the only thing that gets wiped and not washed. All of this is washing, but the wiping is the head. Right? The head. The first time back is fard, and then you bring it back again. That's sunnah. Right? If you bring it back again, it's sunnah. For the women who have long hair, you would do just the head, right? And then to bring it back, you would put your hand under your hair, right? And then bring it back above your head like that. Right? So if you have really long hair. But the end of it starts here where the hairline is, and if you're bald, it doesn't start here, right? it's the normal hairline.
You should have seen Rapunzel's wudu was amazing. Waterfall.
So, one thing I am pausing, and these pauses, your limb is not supposed to dry. So one of the fara'id is that the limbs stay wet, right? So that the most previous limb doesn't dry. I can't just go and get something out of the car and then come back and resume.
Once again, that's from Maliki. In Shafi'i fiqh, you can get
Men,
Everything I say is from Maliki fiqh. I don't want to keep reminding you guys.
men with long hair, the same thing.
Yeah, it's just to the. It doesn't include the neck. In the Hanafi madhab, it includes the neck, but in the Maliki madhab is just where the hairline ends. The hairline.
Okay, but for men with long hair, do they have to go back over the?
If they have long hair,
Yeah.
it would be sunnah to come back.
Oh, got it.
It's sunnah to come back,
Got it.
right? But they gotta go one. They gotta go one back like that, and their whole head has to be done.
It's the surface, not inside, right?
It's the surface because this is the only thing that's white. Everything else is everything else is
If
washed.
you had a fro, you can do that.
Yeah,
certain schools of thought.
yeah. And then in the Shafi'i madhab, it's just a lock or something like that for the women. But for in the Maliki madhab, the entire head. So this is the only thing meaning I don't have to take a handful of water and put it. I just get this is where I get my hands wet. I just get my hands wet. Right? And then if it's a sunnah to get more water for the ears now. Okay? But that's it. Just once like this and you bring it back. Right? Okay. And this because the ears are considered part of the head, it's also white, not water. You're not going to take water. Okay, so the index fingers are in the ear, right? And the thumb is behind the ear. So the index fingers are going to follow the contours of the ear like that, and then the thumbs are going to come out like this, and then you come and get that cartilage on your way down, right? And that's once. Right? Everything else is 3 times as sunnah. The head and the ears are just once. Okay.
So Malikis wash their feet 3 times, not once.
Yeah, everything is 3 times except for the hand.
I just figured that my Maliki was one.
Okay, so also the fingernails. Don't forget the fingernails. Huh? Up to and including the ankle. You have to include the ankle, right? And that means you have to include not just the ankle, but there's contours here. So the water has to get into all the contours. Right? It's got to get into all the contours and the bottom of the foot and everything. Right?
See, there's a hadith about the ankle and the reminder to
Yeah,
the Sahaba.
waylun lil aqabi min an-nar.
I think it'd be good to mention that.
I can think of it.
The English.
So the hadith is woe to the ankles from the fire. Okay, so and that's 3 times. Okay? Look at how much water was used. Right? No. And so this is the now I christened the Maliki. Alhamdulillah. So this is, and of course there are dua and things like this that Imam al-Ghazali prescribes this beautiful dua, but you know, that can be for another time. But I just want to share that with you, inshallah. And
There are some.
one thing, going back to light, this process, if you've witnessed it, and I'm sure you were all struck by it, the wudu as was demonstrated, right? We don't get to see this a lot, but the reality of this is that we're not wetting our limbs with water. Rather, we are bathing our souls with light. That's the difference between wudu as a routine, a ritual that's been ritualized, right? And an act of worship that's done with ihsan. Right? But this is a purification. It's a purification. So, any questions?
What is the thing about like wiping over the socks or the leather socks?
Yeah, wiping is something that we do. If you have wudu already, you have to have wudu. You're Hanafi, so you have to ask a Hanafi scholar. In the Maliki madhab, we wipe over our socks, and there's no amount of days that go by. It's not 3 days or anything like that. As long as you want, you wipe over. But you have to have a state. You have to already be in a state of wudu before you do that. And if you take,
Why would you wipe again if you're already?
Like you put your socks on when you had wudu, like
yeah. So if you have wudu, you put your socks and shoes on. You go out and you start working. When you lose your wudu, do you have to take off your shoes and socks? No, you can wipe it. Right? That's good.
Wipe over the shoes?
You wipe over the shoes. You can wipe over the shoes as well. No, it's all of them. You can wipe over your shoes.
to wipe like the sole, the back, the
Well, for the Maliki madhab, you would wipe over whatever if it's a shoe, you would wipe. This is the wiping, right? That's the wiping right there. So you go from the top, the toes, right? There's a guy with a shoe in there or a cloth, and then you go like that. And you do it once. So it's wiping. Wiping is once, washing is twice.
So I know it's still really up for debate, but I know that with like cosmetic stuff, they're being more halal, like breathable nail polishes.
Yeah, there are now. Yeah.
So is that still up for debate, or is
No, if it's breathable, you can wipe over it.
See, during your wudu time, while you're doing your wudu, what is the Maliki position on having a conversation? Obviously, right now you were teaching.
Yeah, I mean,
generally.
you should have the dhikr of Allah. I mean,
But what if somebody is talking to you? Is that something
yeah,
that is discouraged,
if
or it
they're
actually
if they're saying salam to you, you return their salam, but it's not
it's
you know,
not good to be talking
no.
while you're doing
No.
it? Like in a
Because-
masjid, you're doing that and people
exactly. Yeah.
you don't want to.
No, you want to avoid
Because
that
you're in a
because you're
worship
in
state.
exactly.
So that's important.
So I would like to challenge everyone here. I'm in the mood for challenges these days. But before I challenge you, I want to have one more question.
The socks, when you mention socks, there are so many different types of socks.
Yeah.
Nylon socks and puff socks.
Yeah, you have to ask
Yeah.
you have to ask your own scholars about that. I asked Sheikh Majid about this, and you need to ask your own.
We were told it has to be cotton socks.
In your own
and not
madhab, you have to ask. So
Like
basically,
Shafis have their own rules.
Yeah.
Like you have to be. It has to. There are two conditions. When I learned it, that one, if you put it against something, it doesn't fall over. So it's not something that's flimsy. So leather socks are a little more firm. So they have their own form. And then there was a thing about like if you were to walk in it without shoes for a certain amount of time, it wouldn't wear out. So that was like a Shafi thing.
I think all of the scholars are going to agree that these waterproof socks are okay. Yeah, these waterproof socks are okay. Sheikh Suhail, he's got a whole drawer of them. Suhail Lahad, right? So these waterproof socks are the way to go. Inshallah.
The idea is you can't feel the water.
But
So if you're traveling and water is not easily available, or you have very limited water for drinking,
yeah,
then you can make it drivable.
yeah, you make tayammum. Yeah, you make tayammum in in that case. And tayammum is
Can you show us tayammum?
tayammum is where we
Hey
take.
guys, we're still in the session. Excuse me, we're still in the session. Thank you.
So tayammum is a dry ablution. It differs from wudu in that wudu could be made before prayer comes in. Tayammum allows, again, this is all Maliki madhab. Tayammum allows for everything that wudu allows. Right? So I'm not sure about the other madhab, but it allows for you to touch the mushaf, it allows for you to do anything that wudu allows you to do. But with one condition for prayer, is that the time for prayer has to come in for tayammum. Right? You can't do tayammum before the time for prayer comes in. So tayammum, the time for prayer has to come in, then you do tayammum. Tayammum, you can't use the trees, you can't use the leaves, you can't use the grass, unless there's a lot of dirt in the grass. You can't use the wood, but what we use is natural substances that are apparent on top of the earth. This stone behind you, for example, you can use that because it's stone. But if that stone was was burnt, right, in order to make blocks, right, like concrete blocks, we don't use concrete blocks because it has been processed, right? It loses its natural. It's not in its natural state, but that stone is still in its natural state as though it was on the ground. It's just not on the ground anymore. It's in that structure, right? So we can use that. And basically, tayammum is again we say Bismillah. There are other conditions for when you can do tayammum, but I'm not going to go into all of those. Basically, you have you pat down on the earth. If it's dirt, you pat down on it, right? And if it's a stone or a big rock or something like that, you wipe it, right? You wipe it. But let's assume it's dirt. You pat down on it once, and then you go like that. You shake some of the dirt off, right? And then you do the face, but not with the meticulousness of the wudu, because the tayammum mabniun ala takhfif, right? The tayammum is based on being light with it. You have to be light with it. You're not going to get dirty making. You're becoming purified, right? So you pat once, and then like this, right? Just like that, right? You with the thumbs you cover the whole face, but you don't go into the contour, right? Once, right? Not 3 times. And then the second pat is sunnah, because you could just do once like this. You could just do that, right?
Or you don't go all the way to
Imam Malik says that the hands are fard, the arms are sunnah. In the Maliki madhab, the entire thing is fard. So though Imam Malik considered the hand fard and the arm sunnah, the mashhur opinion or the majority opinion of the Maliki madhab, his own madhab, is that the entire arm is fard. Right? So yes. Right? Let's do it. Let's all do it together. Right? Okay. So I didn't do the arms yet. So the arms are like this. Oh, the back of the hand. We start with the back of the hand, right? And then come to the front with the thumb inside here, going all the way back, right? And then we grab the pinky. Then we grab the. Oh no, sorry. We grab the. Sorry. Going like this here, and then here, and we grab the thumb. Okay, and then we grab this. Okay. And then the same thing with the left hand. So basically the palm and the face of the thumb are meeting. And the palm and the face of the index finger, and then this here, and this here, and this here. And now you can make salah, right? And you have to do that for every single salah until you find water.
You say Bismillah before.
Bismillah. Yeah. And then, no, you're done.
That's an important point.
Yes.
You make it for every single salah.
No,
So
you,
you're not
you,
in wudu.
you cannot make it for it. This is not a replacement for wudu. This is a license. This is a license in the absence of water, that must be repeated for every prayer until water becomes available. And let's say you have water but it's scarce, then you would do it. Let's say you have water but you fear that if you're making wudu, the animals that you're relying on, the livestock and things, they would be harmed. Then you can't. Then you can make tayammum. If your fear is that lions would die and scorpions and snakes and these kinds of things, then no, go ahead and make your wudu, because.
What about if you think that you enter the masjid and then you think that you are going to miss the first salah, and if you make wudu, but if you make dry wudu, you can join in the last minute.
If there's one rak'ah left before the time, if you can make one rak'ah before the time, then before the time ends, then you can make wudu, you can make tayammum, as long as it's not habitual. You can make tayammum and then catch that one rak'ah, and then you've got it. As long as you catch one rak'ah before the time goes out, you've caught it.
We're not talking about jama'ah. It's not about catching jama'ah. It's catching the time.
It's catching the time. It's not catching jama'ah.
It's not the last rak'ah of the jama'ah.
You asked for jama'ah? I'm sorry. No, it's the
You're
time.
not missing the prayer.
So if there's one rak'ah not left in the jama'ah, but one rak'ah left in the time, then you can do it as long as it doesn't become habitual.
I think we should, guys. There's a lot of fiqh questions that could be asked. It's better to ask a scholar of your thing. And some people say, "What is a Maliki? What does that mean? I'm just Muslim." That's another conversation. I know at least a third of us will have that. What we want to do is this demonstration. All these questions were great so far, but let's have them concluded. And those are actually fiqh questions that are for another time.
Yeah, and all of those questions I'm answering from the perspective of the Maliki.
And really quickly,
and we're accepting converts, by the way. We are accepting. Membership drive is open.
I'm not Maliki, but all four geniuses are Maliki. Okay, that we had mentioned. Those four, Dr. Omar, they're all Maliki.
I just christened you.
You mentioned all four? You never mentioned all
Dr.
four?
Omar, Sheikh Hamza, Dr. Jackson, and Sheikh Abdul Murad. Those are just my four
And Sheikh Muhammad Majid.
And Hakim and all, huh? And who? Obid
Yeah.
You had him in the four G's?
Well, no, I'm just saying.
Oh, no.
No, I've got a Facebook post about
Yes,
it.
I saw that.
You saw it.
Oh, mashallah.
Oh, yeah, I did. He's really ideal. Okay. That's true. I didn't mean.
أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. And Saad has some.
One last thing I just wanted to mention. We've never done. I think this is actually really cool that we did here, because there's sometimes a lot of conversations and talks that we've done in our own program for others are almost all like theoretical, and a lot of us, we actually have real stuff that we need to learn that are concrete that we'll do every day. So I think this has been helpful to me, because I think we should probably be more 50-50. This is 95-5, but I think this stuff is actually really, really good, because you can, it's more practical, and I think the Prophet's teaching was a lot more like this oftentimes. It was just very concrete, practical things. So a lot of you will probably be like, man, I need more of this. How do I do this now? How do I do this, right? And I wanted Ustadh Hisham to just briefly talk about an opportunity he has made available, if it's okay with you right now, for Maliki Fit, this type of stuff, but for our whole life, that he does online. So